Welcome back. Well, the last time he was on the show, Dominic Raab was pitching to be Prime Minister. But having failed to reach the final two, he is now backing the favourite in the race, Boris Johnson. Dominic Raab, thank you very much for being with us.
Good morning.
OK, so who would be a better Prime Minister then, you or Boris Johnson?
Oh, look, we look forward, not back, and he's got the support of MPs, and I think that's crucial. So I'm supporting him, as you know, and mainly because I think he'll get Brexit delivered. I think we need that finality to get it done, come what may, by the end of October. He's been very clear about that. But also the other policies he's been talking about, tax cuts for lower middle-income families, the increase in the education budget, which is crucial to social mobility. I think he's the candidate with the most optimism about the future, and we need a bit of that to get out of this rut.
I mean, you were saying there, the very first thing you said there about Boris Johnson was that he'll get Brexit done, he'll deliver it. But I was speaking to Sam Gyimah earlier on the show, who said that he's going to try everything in his power to effectively block a no-deal happening. And there are many MPs like it. He said up to 30, or at least 30 Conservative MPs who will do that. I mean, there's going to be an almighty parliamentary showdown, isn't there, in the autumn, if, as many think is the most likely thing to happen, a Boris Johnson Prime Minister tries to leave without a deal.
I thought it was very interesting Sam rode back from any suggestion that he would vote with Labour on a vote of no confidence. I think it was quite important. The more people come on your show, like Tobias Ellwood, Rory Stewart, Sam Gyimah, the more they actually back away from that. And I think there are
But he's been very clear about no deal, though, isn't he? That trying to use legislation to stop.
Sure.
You think that's impossible, then, do you?
No, I think there's two things here. There's a principled argument, which is that we all, Sam, myself, all of the Conservatives were elected on a manifesto which said that we would leave, come what may, with a deal or with no deal by the end of March. That hasn't happened. We're all...
Well, no deal wasn't specifically in the...
It was absolutely explicitly in the manifesto. And it's incumbent on all of us as politicians to keep our promises. There's also then the practical side of things. We've had two attempts recently to take control of the order paper to deal with what are called the financial estimates, but basically government spending, and try and use that to choke the possibilities of leaving at the end of October. And so far they've failed. And I think there has been a dawning since the European elections that we've got to get this delivered. The thing that is holding Britain back economically, politically, in every way is this rut we're in. We've got to get out of it, and we won't do that until we deliver Brexit.
At the same time, though, you know and I know that there are many MPs, a majority of MPs really, who are said that they are against a no-deal Brexit. Do you think that proroguing Parliament may be something that a future Prime Minister would have to look at to get that through?
No, I think it's highly unlikely.
But possible?
Well, I think it's highly unlikely, and Boris has been very clear about that, highly unlikely and undesirable.
But he hasn't ruled it out, as you didn't rule it out when you were running.
I think the issue about ruling things out is we want Brussels to have a very clear understanding, a very clear message that we'll leave at the end of October, come what may. And that is the way we give ourselves the best shot of getting a deal, which, in fairness, I think most of us want. So if you take WTO Brexit, if you take walking away off the table, you weaken our chances of getting a deal that we want.
So is it a negotiating tactic, then?
No, it's both. The principle of finality that I think the country needs so we can move on, but also it does give us, in any negotiation, whether it's a business negotiation, a diplomatic one, or a big political one like this, I think the other side need to know that you won't just accept any terms that they dictate.
So that effectively means that the threat to prorogue Parliament has got to be a genuine one, then?
No, I just think you say more generally across the board things won't be taken off the table.
I mean, some people would be really, really alarmed at this, that this is effectively overriding parliamentary sovereignty, which is what, the referendum was about.
No, I don't think so. Actually, what happened is that we, the politicians and MPs, gave to the British people the decision on this. And I don't think it's right, through all the shenanigans and devices and ruses that have been conjured up, that decision, which has been made by the British people, is somehow stolen back away from them. So actually this is about a higher duty, which is to give effect to the promises we've made to the people of this country.
We heard just before your interview from Minette Batters,
yes,
the president of the National Farmers Union, who was saying how devastating a no-deal Brexit would be for her industry. I mean, does that worry you? She also said that Boris Johnson, by the way, hadn't even bothered to reply to her letter.
Well, I don't know about the correspondence issue, and the NFU's position has been very clear throughout. Look, there are certainly some sectors, and we know about the just-in-time manufacturers, we know about the farmers, where there are some risks here, but we need to manage those risks with a can-do spirit, with giving clear indication that we'll support all of our sensitive industries through this. But let's also not just talk about the risks. This week alone, we've had Amazon announcing 2,000 new jobs in this country. We've had Jaguar Land Rover saying a new line of cars going to be built in the Midlands. We've had NTT, a massive...
But they also said about the import importance of getting, a good Brexit deal through as well.
Sure, but they're making this decision come what may. And then we've had NTT, a big Japanese tech firm, saying that their 11 billion global business will be headquartered in the UK. I think the one thing above all people want to see is a bit of can-do spirit, some optimism, and that's why I think Boris Johnson is the guy that encapsulates that, epitomises that, and is the right person to lead us at this time.
Talking about can-do spirit, we all know how difficult the parliamentary arithmetic is when it comes to Brexit. Do you think that Boris Johnson might call a sneaky election in the autumn to try and change the numbers?
No, I don't think so. I think it's unlikely. But look, you need to ask the team, and I think it's difficult to deal with hypotheticals, but I think it's unlikely. The reality is, leaving the EU is set as the default mechanism in legislation by the end of October. I think it's much more difficult than people are suggesting to try and overturn that. That is the will of Parliament, reflected as the default position.
Although it happened
law.
on the 29th of March, didn't it?
Well, sure, but the thing that will have changed is that we'll have, and I believe it will be Boris Johnson, a Prime Minister that is absolutely clear that he is going to lead this country out of the EU the end of October. And he's mentioned this. We want a wide-ranging cabinet. He's going to put together his team after he wins, if he wins, and I feel confident about that.
After he, you'd certainly do.
Well, no, we don't want to. But I think it is important we have some discipline in cabinet, and he's also talked a bit about that as well.
So, talk about the discipline in cabinet. Are you effectively saying that you need more Brexiteers around the table?
No, something different to that. I think you want a wide-ranging cabinet, and I want to be very careful to protect the prerogative of any Prime Minister to choose their top team. But I do think you need discipline and you need collective responsibility restored, and I think that's absolutely crucial.
So everyone signing up to the idea of a no-deal Brexit if necessary?
Well, I think in any team, whether you're in the media or in business, you have the discussions about what the right approach is, and then when the decision is made, of course you've got to stick and play for the team.
Or quit like you did, I guess.
Yeah. Ultimately, but in that case, don't sign up to it in the first place. I didn't quit because the government wasn't doing what I wanted. I quit because the government was living up to the promises that everyone in the cabinet and in Parliament, every Conservative, stood in the 2017 election on. So I believe that keeping our promises is crucial, and I believe Boris is the one that will lead us out at the end of October to make sure we keep that crucial promise.
Talking about an election, I'm keen to know your thoughts on what one of your colleagues, Steve Baker, suggested in an interview this week, which was that if there is an early election, the Conservative Party would have to look to do some kind of deal with Nigel Farage and the Brexit Party.
No, I don't think we should be looking to do deals. I think what we should be looking to do is deliver Brexit, keep our promises, and then...
But would it be a necessity?
Well, people talk about all these deal-making things, and some people say with the Liberal Democrats, some people say with Farage and all the rest of it.
I don't think it would be. I don't think Boris Johnson would be making a deal with the Liberal Democrats.
I think it's highly unlikely. But if you look at the history of our politics, I think the number one thing people expect is for us to keep our promises. If we keep our promises on Brexit, I don't think we're going to have a problem with the Brexit Party or Nigel Farage.
OK, I'm keen to talk a little bit more about Boris Johnson. You've obviously said how you're backing him this morning, and I wanted to ask you about something that Boris Johnson said at a hustings this week. We just have a quick look at what he said. Too often, there are parts of our country where English is not spoken by some people as their first language. That needs to be changed. I mean, he's talking there about first language. He's not talking there about people who don't speak English at all. I mean, you're the son of a refugee.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I am. And in fact, one thing I'd like to see us do more of is support refugees into this country learning English. I talked a bit about that during the contest. I think it's crucial. In fact, you asked me about my...
But just be really... Yeah. Sorry, and I don't want to interrupt you as you're talking about
sure.
your family history. But he's not talking there about people learning English. He's talking there about people speaking English as their first language.
Well, I think you're over-interpreting that. I think what...
Well, that's what he said. I'm just looking at what he said.
So you talked about my father. When he came here, the two things that made a difference, he didn't know any English, age 6, 1938. The two things that made a difference to his life and his ability to contribute to this country was getting his English up to fluent level and then the education opportunities. Those are two crucial things, opportunity and tolerance, that we have in this country. And actually, I think it's a two-way street. So I do think we need to do more to encourage and promote the learning of English so that actually people can contribute. And of course, it's critical to finding work. If you don't speak English, much harder to find work. So it's something which is in the interest of those that arrive here in whatever circumstances, but it's also in the interest of this country.
But I'm not talking about people learning English. I think this is quite important. We talk about people speaking English as their first language. They may have English as their second language. They may have worked really hard to learn English. But they may speak a different language at home.
I think you're over-interpreting that.
But that's what he said.
Well, no.
It's quite important detail. I mean, you're the details man, aren't you? That's what you said.
Sure.
Boris Johnson a details man?
So what he's saying is that people that come here don't have English as a first language. If their English isn't up to scratch, then that helps. I know what this is like. My wife came here and had to get her English up to scratch. It was good for her, it was good for my father, but also it's crucial for this country. We want to be an open, outward-looking country. We want people with talent, with ability, with huge amount to contribute socially as well as economically to come here. But learning English so that you can contribute, so that it is good for the people coming here, but it's also good for the UK as a whole.
So do you think that he effectively misspoke? He meant to be talking about people learning English, and instead he talked about people speaking English as their first language?
I think you're over-interpreting it, but...
I'm literally just looking at his words.
I know, but I think most people would understand that when you're talking about English, plenty of people would come here with English not as their first language, and they may be conversational, but actually they need to get it up. What I think the general point Boris is making is we want people to come here with their talent, with their determination. We know that plenty of people that come here from around the world have got tremendous work ethic. But in order to fully contribute, you do need to be able to speak the language to a certain level.
OK, just a quick look, and I know it's horrible when people bring back things that you've said when you were running for the leadership and now you're backing a different candidate, but I just want to show you something that you said on the show last time. I do think there is a risk when you go into marginal seats that the Tory party gets caricatured as the party of privilege, the party of the elite, only interested in looking after the well-off. Are you worried that a Boris Johnson Prime Minister could effectively play into that caricature as the Conservatives being the party of the elite?
So no, and I think one of the things that Boris has done during the course of this leadership contest is not just show that he's the Heineken candidate that can reach parts of the electorate that others can't, but take on ideas. So he's talked about national insurance, which is tax cuts for the very lowest paid.
Because at the beginning, he was talking about tax cuts for higher paid earners, wasn't he? Well, so you think he's changed, basically?
No, I think he's certainly built up the message that he wants, which is those on low and middle incomes ought to be the first recipients of any tax cuts.
He's stolen a couple of ideas from your campaign, then?
Well, it's the best form of flattery, but I think in a good, healthy contest, we bat ideas around, you have a proper debate on substance. But Boris's message actually is very clear. We want to unite the aspirational low and middle income, working and middle class families in this country. And actually saying you're going to cut the taxes of the lowest paid, but also those on middling incomes, I think is a really powerful message. And
just finally, I'm keen to ask your opinion of a story that's on the front page of the Mail on Sunday today. Leaked comments by Britain's ambassador to Washington, who apparently described Donald Trump as inept, insecure and incompetent. Is he?
Well, no, I wouldn't pass that sort of very personalised judgment. I think the thing with diplomatic cables, and I used to work at the Foreign Office, I'd be quite careful about what you say, which is on a personal basis in those cables, because it's all very well talking about the substance of the relationship, the policies, but I think some of that may, in retrospect, be regarded as unwise. But at the end of the day, I'm sure that the two sides will get beyond any of those kind of comments.
So we went too far, maybe?
Well, no, I just think that these diplomatic cables are basically the telegrams that are sent back from embassies around the world to the Foreign Office. I think you need to be a bit careful about personalised comments in those kind of missives.
OK, Dominic Raab, thank you very much for coming on the programme this week.